Hello YouTube. Uh, it's a Saturday, which is why I had a beer at lunch. Um, I'm just hanging out at home, getting ready to go to a writing workshop put on by a friend of mine. I'm excited about that. And I guess I wanted to sort of relate my first sort of impressions and experiences with going through this process of getting funded for my top surgery. And that process, if you haven't watched the last video, 2 videos ago, um, was that process entails getting myself referred to the gender identity clinic here in Toronto, that the only one so far that is sort of mandated by the government of Ontario to hand out tickets to surgery, I guess, as it were. Sort of the gatekeepers of whether or not you are trans enough to get funding, or whether or not you deserve funding, or whatever have you, whatever their logic is. And so far, I've had my doctor send over a referral. I've had the clinic send me back a questionnaire package, sort of maybe three. Let's see how many sheets. Ooh. One. There's about 4 sheets stapled together. But yes, about sort of 8 pages or 4 pages, double-sided in total, of questions that you have to fill out, or that you have to answer, and then send back to the gender identity clinic for them to then sort of read it over and figure out whether or not what kind of assessment or what kind of consultation they're going to book you for anyways. I won't be getting a consultation anytime soon, but this is part of the process because I also won't be earning and saving $6,500 anytime soon to be able to pay for my own surgery. So I'd rather, try to go through this process and see what happens, see if I can get funded. I better be able to get funded, man. This process doesn't seem like it's going to be too fun. Just judging on some of the questions that were asked in the questionnaire, that made me feel a little bit crazy. After all, it is a gender identity clinic at a medical institution that sort of takes care of what they call mental health and addictions services. So I guess people who come under the umbrella of being a client of their service would automatically be deemed as needing the services that someone with a mental disability or addictions would need. Fair enough. I mean, there's definitely a need for services for folks, for disabled folks, and folks with addictions. But just because the pure stigma put on folks who are disabled or mentally disabled, or folks with addictions, and then to sort of on top of that have the stigma of being trans, and then you sort of combine it with, okay, you're trans, and you're trans because it's a problem. You're trans because you have a problem, and that problem is with your mind, basically. It's a little bit much. It's a little bit like, maybe I wasn't ready for this process. Maybe I wasn't ready to be labeled as disabled. Maybe I wasn't ready to be labeled as crazy, to put it bluntly. So I'm kind of like, oh, this questionnaire is a little, I'm not ready for it or something. But I'm ready to get my surgery. So, I mean, in order to do that, I sort of have to go through this process of being labeled and being stigmatized in this way, and having my sort of, path controlled by someone else, purely because I don't have the funds to control my own path. So, for example, one of the questions, and that I've never been asked in my life before, and I find it very humiliating and degrading. Um, but it's like a standard question on their questionnaire. It's like just like flat out, they don't think anything of it. This is something they need to know in order to deem whether or not you're ready for, ready for surgery or hormones or whatever it is. The stuff around cross dressing I find really strange, just because as trans folks, I mean, my understanding and experience is that we kind of know who we are, right? It's just basically it's up to the rest of the world to sort of accept that and take that in. Um, so there's not really such a thing, therefore, as cross dressing if, I know that I'm a dude, I know that I'm a man from whenever. Like, I know it, and it's a matter of convincing the rest of the world that that's how it is. Therefore, if I dress like a man and I am a man, it's not cross dressing, it's cis dressing or same dressing, or it's like dressing as, you know, how you are. So this whole word, this whole term cross dressing comes up a lot um, in this questionnaire, and that's maybe something interesting for cross dressers out there to consider, that cross dressing is considered in this sort of medical sense a stepping stone to being fully crazy and fully trans, fully pathologized, maybe as if you want to take it that way. So I don't know how cross-dressers out there feel about that, feel about having their identity sort of put smack down in the survey as a measure of how crazy you are. I mean, might not be the most flattering thing at all. But I'd be curious to hear folks' thoughts on that, and if there's actually any action being taken from cross-dressing communities or cross-dressing individuals about this type of medical making of your identity. So, so one of the questions, or subsections of the questions is, at what age did you begin? And then it gives you a bunch of things that you have to sort of list off. At what age did you begin occasional cross-dressing? Frequent cross-dressing? Continuous cross-dressing at home? Continuous cross-dressing outside home? Full-time cross-living? A little confused about that. And then it says, which of the above noted categories best describes your current gender role? So, are you occasional cross-dresser, frequent cross-dressing, continuous cross-dresser at home, continuous cross-dressing outside the home, or full-time cross-living? Now, if that doesn't confuse you, I mean, maybe you can come and help me fill out the survey, because I'm pretty confused by that. Particularly this whole full-time cross-living and cross-living, this term cross-living just being thrown in the last part there after all this mention of cross-dressing. And it seems to be the